My neighbors used my pool without permission, then sued me for trespassing. The judge couldn't stop shaking her head. There is a specific kind of joy that comes from working years for something and finally holding it in your hands. For me, that joy was a pool. Not just any pool, a kidney-shaped, saltwater, professionally landscaped oasis in my own backyard. The culmination of 15 years of saving, sacrificing, and telling myself someday. My name is Marcus. I'm 42 years old, a high school principal in a small town in North Carolina. My wife, Elena, is a pediatric nurse. We've been married for 18 years, have 2 kids, Lily, 14, and Sam, 11, and we've never been the kind of people who make waves. We bought our house 12 years ago, a modest 4-bedroom colonial on a quiet cul-de-sac. The neighborhood was friendly, the schools were good, and the yard was big enough for a garden and a swing set and, someday, the pool we dreamed about. Someday took longer than we expected. There were braces for Lily, baseball camps for Sam, a new roof when the old one failed, a transmission when the minivan died. Life kept getting in the way of our dreams. But we kept saving. A little each month, automatically withdrawn, growing slowly but steadily. By the time we hit our 40s, we had enough. The pool was installed in the spring of 2022. I still remember the day the construction crew arrived, the rumble of their trucks, the smell of fresh concrete, the way the kids pressed their faces to the window, watching the excavation like it was the most exciting thing they'd ever seen. We're getting a pool. We're actually getting a pool. Lily screamed it from the backyard. Sam ran laps around the perimeter, pretending he was already swimming. Elena cried, happy tears, the kind you cry when you've been waiting for something for so long that it doesn't feel real until it's finally there. The pool took 6 weeks to build. By the time it was finished, the weather was warm, the days were long, and our backyard had become a sanctuary. We didn't go crazy with the landscaping, a simple patio, some lounge chairs, a few potted plants. But it was ours. Every inch of it, paid for with money we'd earned and saved. The first summer was magical. We swam every day, grilled on weekends, hosted birthday parties and 4th of July barbecues. The kids invited friends over. Elena and I would sit on the patio after they went to bed, drinking wine and watching the pool lights shimmer under the stars. It was worth it, Elena said one night, her head on my shoulder. All those years of waiting. Definitely worth it. We didn't know then that our paradise was about to become a battleground. The trouble started with the Hendersons. Brad and Karen Henderson moved into the house next door 2 years after we built the pool. They were in their late 30s, friendly enough at first, with 2 kids around the same ages as ours. Brad worked in sales, Karen was a stay-at-home mom who seemed to spend most of her time at the gym, judging by her Instagram. We welcomed them to the neighborhood with a casserole and a bottle of wine. They seemed nice, if a little entitled. Brad made a comment about our cute little house that rubbed me the wrong way, but I let it slide. Nice yard, Brad said, looking over the fence at our pool. Must be nice to have that kind of money. We saved for a long time, I said. Must be nice, he repeated. I didn't think much of it at the time. Some people are just awkward. The first incident happened on a Saturday in June. I was in the living room, reading the paper, when I heard splashing from the backyard. Not the gentle splashing of our kids, they were inside playing video games, but the loud, chaotic splashing of multiple adults and children. I walked to the back window and felt my jaw drop. The Hendersons were in our pool. All 4 of them. Brad, Karen, and their 2 kids, splashing around like they owned the place. They'd brought floats, towels, even a cooler full of drinks. I walked outside, my heart pounding. Brad? Karen? What are you doing? Brad looked up, waved, and smiled like nothing was wrong. Oh, hey, Marcus. Hope you don't mind. It was so hot, and the kids were begging to swim. Will only be an hour or so. Mind? Of course I mind. This is our pool. You didn't ask permission. Karen's smile faltered. We figured you wouldn't mind. We're neighbors. That's what neighbors do. Neighbors ask before they use each other's property. They don't just let themselves in. We didn't let ourselves in. The gate was unlocked. The gate is unlocked because my kids use the pool. That's not an invitation. Brad climbed out of the pool, water dripping onto my patio. He was still smiling, but there was something hard in his eyes. Look, Marcus, we're just trying to cool off. No need to make a big deal out of it. It is a big deal. You're in my backyard, in my pool, without my permission. That's trespassing. Trespassing? Brad laughed. We're neighbors. We live 30 feet away. You're really going to pull the trespassing card? Get out of my pool. Karen gathered the kids, shooting me a dirty look. They grabbed their things and left through the side gate, which Brad made a point of leaving wide open. I locked it behind them. That was weird, Elena said when I told her about it that night. Do you think they'll try it again? I hope not. If they do, I'll have a conversation with them. A firmer one. We both assumed that was the end of it. We were wrong. The Hendersons didn't try to use our pool again for a few weeks. I thought they'd gotten the message. Then I noticed small things. Our fence, which had been in good condition, suddenly developed gaps. Not enough to be obvious, but enough that someone determined could squeeze through. The gate lock, which had worked fine for years, started sticking. Once, I found it propped open with a rock. I fixed the gaps. I replaced the lock. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then we caught them again. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I'd come home early from work to pick up a file I'd forgotten. The house was quiet, the kids were at school, Elena was at the hospital, so I noticed the splashing immediately. I walked to the back window. The Hendersons were in the pool again. This time, they'd brought friends. There were at least 8 people in my backyard, adults and children, splashing, drinking, lounging on my chairs. They'd set up a Bluetooth speaker on the patio and were playing music loud enough to hear from the street. I walked outside, my phone in my hand. Brad. Karen. Get out of my pool. Now. Brad was floating on one of my pool floats, a beer in his hand. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked annoyed, like I was interrupting something important. Marcus, come on. It's a hot day. We're just having some fun. You're trespassing. This is private property. I've told you before. The gate was unlocked. I replaced the lock. You had to have broken it. Brad didn't deny it. He just shrugged. Look, we've been having some work done on our house. The noise, the dust, it's been unbearable. The kids just wanted to cool off. Then take them to a public pool. There's one 10 minutes away. We shouldn't have to. You have a pool. We're your neighbors. What's the harm? The harm is that you're using something that isn't yours without permission. The harm is that you're teaching your kids that boundaries don't apply to them. The harm is that you're making me feel like a prisoner in my own home, constantly having to check if someone has broken into my backyard. Karen climbed out of the pool, wrapping a towel around herself. She wasn't embarrassed. She was angry. You know what, Marcus? You're being ridiculous. We live next door. We're part of the same community. Sharing is what neighbors do. I'm not your neighbor. I'm your victim. Now get your things and leave. They left. But not before Brad made a comment that sent a chill down my spine. This isn't over. I didn't know what he meant. I was about to find out. The letter arrived 2 weeks later. It was from a law firm I'd never heard of, addressed to me and Elena. I opened it with trembling hands, expecting a bill or a complaint about our property. It was a lawsuit. The Hendersons were suing us for trespassing, harassment, and emotional distress. I read the letter 3 times, convinced I was hallucinating. They were suing us for trespassing. Us. The people whose pool they'd broken into multiple times. The people whose fence they'd damaged. The people who'd been victimized by their entitled behavior. You have to be kidding me, Elena said when I showed her the letter. I wish I was. What are they claiming? I read the complaint out loud. The Hendersons claimed that we had repeatedly entered their property without permission, made threatening statements, and created an environment of fear and intimidation. They claimed we had damaged their fence. They claimed we had made racially insensitive comments. We are both white, they are white, this was clearly made up. They claimed that our aggressive behavior had caused their children emotional distress, requiring therapy. They were seeking $50,000 in damages. This is insane, Elena said. They're projecting. Everything they're accusing us of, they did. I know. We need a lawyer. I know. We hired a lawyer named Deborah, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who'd handled property disputes before. She read the complaint, read our account of what happened, and laughed. They're trying to bully you. They think you'll settle just to make it go away. We're not settling. Good. Then let's fight. The legal process was slow and expensive. We had to hire a surveyor to prove the property lines. We had to gather evidence, photos of the damage to our fence, the broken lock, the pool floats they'd left behind. We had to document every interaction, every text, every passive-aggressive note they'd left in our mailbox. The Hendersons, meanwhile, continued to escalate. They started filming us every time we went into our backyard. They'd stand at their fence with their phones, recording our conversations, our kids playing, our family dinners. They'd post passive-aggressive comments on the neighborhood Facebook group, calling us unfriendly and unneighborly. Our other neighbors noticed. Some took our side. Others stayed neutral. A few, the ones who'd also had run-ins with the Hendersons, sent us messages of support. They sued the Johnsons last year, one neighbor told me. Over a tree branch that fell on their property. They dropped the case when the Johnsons lawyered up. Why do they keep doing this? Because sometimes it works. Sometimes people settle just to avoid the headache. I was determined not to be one of those people. 6 months into the legal battle, I made a decision. Fighting the Hendersons lawsuit wasn't enough. I needed to go on offense. What if we countersue? I asked Deborah. For what? Trespassing. Property damage. Harassment. Emotional distress. Everything they've done to us. Deborah leaned back in her chair, considering. It's risky. It would double the legal fees. And it would make the case more public. The case is already public. The Hendersons have made sure of that. Fair point. We have evidence. Photos of them in the pool. Photos of the damage to our fence. Witnesses, our kids, the neighbors who saw them break in. We have texts where Brad admits he knows he's not allowed to use the pool. We have a lot, Deborah agreed. But winning isn't the same as being right. You need to be prepared for the stress. The time. The money. I'm prepared. We filed the counterclaim 2 weeks later. The Hendersons were furious. I knew because Brad called me, and not through our lawyers, but directly, on my personal phone. You're really doing this? You're suing us? Your family has been using our pool without permission for months. You broke our fence. You broke our lock. You filmed our kids without consent. And then you sued us. What did you expect? We expected you to back off. We're not backing off. You're going to regret this. I already regret letting you move in next door. I hung up. The case dragged on for another year. Depositions, motions, hearings. The Hendersons' lawyer tried to get our counterclaim dismissed. Deborah argued successfully that it should proceed. The judge, a patient woman named Judge Morrison, seemed increasingly annoyed with both sides. This is a neighbor dispute, she said during one hearing. These are grown adults. You should be able to resolve this without the court's intervention. We tried mediation. It failed. The Hendersons refused to admit any wrongdoing. They refused to pay for the damage they'd caused. They refused to agree to stay out of our yard. We have a right to enjoy our property, Brad said during the mediation. The pool is an attractive nuisance. Attractive nuisance? I nearly laughed. You're not children. You're adults who broke into someone's backyard. The fence was inadequate. The fence was fine until you damaged it. We were at an impasse. The trial lasted 3 days. It was exhausting, humiliating, and ultimately vindicating. The Hendersons' lawyer tried to paint us as hostile, unreasonable neighbors who had overreacted to a harmless request. He introduced photos of our fence, the gaps, the broken lock, and argued that the inadequate security had invited the Hendersons to use the pool. Did you ever post signs warning that the pool was private property? He asked me during cross-examination. The fence and the locked gate are the signs, I said. No trespassing signs are ugly. I shouldn't need them on my own property. So you admit you didn't take reasonable steps to keep people out? I took reasonable steps. I had a fence. I had a lock. The Hendersons broke the lock. That's not my failure. That's their crime. The Hendersons took the stand. Brad was confident, charming, the kind of person who could sell ice to an Eskimo. He told the jury that he'd mistakenly believed the pool was shared property, that the previous owners had allowed neighbors to use it, that we had encouraged them to swim. Did Marcus ever explicitly tell you that you were not allowed to use the pool? The Hendersons' lawyer asked. He was unfriendly about it, Brad said. But no, not explicitly. Did he ever post signs? No. Did he ever call the police? No. So you had no reason to believe you were trespassing. I thought we were being neighborly. Then it was my turn. I told the jury about the years we'd saved for the pool. The sacrifices we'd made. The joy we'd felt when it was finally built. And then I told them about the Hendersons, the first time we found them in the pool, the broken lock, the party with 8 people, the passive-aggressive notes, the lawsuit. Your Honor, I'm not a litigious person. I've never sued anyone before. I don't want to be here. But the Hendersons have left me no choice. They've used my property without permission. They've damaged my fence. They filmed my children. And then they sued me for asking them to stop. I looked at the jury. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for peace. I want the Hendersons to stay out of my yard. I want them to pay for the damage they caused. And I want them to understand that no means no. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, Judge Morrison read the verdict. In the matter of Henderson versus Chen, the jury finds for the defendants, Marcus and Elena Chen, on all counts. The Hendersons' claims of trespassing, harassment, and emotional distress are dismissed with prejudice. I felt Elena's hand squeeze mine. In the matter of Chen versus Henderson, the jury finds for the plaintiffs, Marcus and Elena Chen, on all counts. The Hendersons are hereby ordered to pay $15,000 in damages for property destruction, $10,000 for trespassing, and $25,000 for legal fees. The total was $50,000. Exactly what they tried to get from us. The judge wasn't done. Additionally, the court issues a permanent restraining order prohibiting the Hendersons from entering the Chen's property for any reason. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. Brad's face was white. Karen was crying, not sad tears, angry tears. This isn't fair, Brad said, loud enough for the whole courtroom to hear. Judge Morrison looked at him. Mr. Henderson, you and your family broke into your neighbor's pool not once, but repeatedly. You damaged their property. You filmed their children. And when they asked you to stop, you sued them. She paused. I've been a judge for 22 years. I've seen a lot of entitled behavior. But this case takes the cake. She turned to us. You're free to go. Enjoy your pool. The Hendersons moved out 3 months later. I don't know if it was the judgment, the restraining order, or the neighborhood hostility. Word had spread, and most of our neighbors had stopped talking to them, but they sold their house and relocated across town. We've had 2 new neighbors since then. Both are lovely. They asked permission before using the pool, and we said yes. That's what neighbors do. The legal battle cost us nearly $30,000, more than the Hendersons were ordered to pay. But they never paid. They filed for bankruptcy a few months after the judgment, and we never saw a cent. I didn't care. The money wasn't the point. The point was the principle. The point was standing up to bullies who thought they could take whatever they wanted. The point was teaching my kids that sometimes you have to fight, even when it's hard, even when it's expensive, even when the outcome is uncertain. Lily was 14 during the trial. She watched the whole thing, the depositions, the hearings, the Hendersons filming her in the backyard. "Dad, why are they so mean?" she asked once. "Because they've never been told no. And some people don't know how to handle that." "Are we going to win?" "I don't know. But we're going to fight." We did fight. And we won. It's been 2 years since the trial. The pool is still there. The fence is repaired. The lock is new. And the Hendersons are gone. I think about them sometimes, not with anger, but with something like pity. They had everything. A nice house, healthy kids, good jobs. But they couldn't be happy with what they had. They always wanted more. And when they couldn't take it, they tried to destroy the people who had it. That's not a way to live. Elena and I still swim every evening when the weather is warm. The kids are older now. Lily is 16, Sam is 13, and they're both taller than me, almost. They still love the pool. They still invite their friends over. But they've learned to be careful. To lock the gate. To say no when someone asks for something that isn't theirs to give. I've learned something too. I've learned that peace isn't free. Sometimes you have to fight for it. Sometimes you have to spend money you'd rather save and time you'd rather spend with your family and energy you'd rather devote to something positive. But it's worth it. Because the alternative, letting bullies win, is worse. The question that started all this, was I wrong to fight back? I've answered it 1,000 times. No. I wasn't wrong. The Hendersons were wrong. They were wrong to use my pool without permission. They were wrong to damage my fence. They were wrong to film my children. They were wrong to sue me. And I was right to stand up to them. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to punish them. But because I wanted to teach my kids that boundaries matter. That no means no. That you don't have to accept being treated badly just to avoid conflict. The door the Hendersons tried to open wasn't just an entrance to my backyard. It was an entrance to a battle I didn't choose but refused to lose. I walked through. And on the other side, I found peace. Today, the pool is calm. The water is clear. The sun is warm. Elena is reading on a lounge chair. The kids are in the water, laughing, splashing, being kids. I'm sitting on the patio, watching them, feeling something I didn't feel during the trial. Gratitude. Not for the victory, that was satisfying, but empty in its own way. Gratitude for the people around me. For Elena, who never doubted me. For Lily and Sam, who watched their father fight and learned that standing up for yourself is always worth it. Gratitude for the pool. For the years of saving, the weeks of construction, the joy of finally having something I'd worked so long for. The Hendersons tried to take that joy. They failed. I walked to the fence, the new fence, stronger than the old one, with a lock that can't be broken, and run my hand along the wood. It's solid. Secure. A boundary that says, this is mine. You are not welcome. I don't feel angry anymore. I don't feel triumphant. I just feel safe. The neighborhood has moved on. The Hendersons are a cautionary tale, a story people tell new residents when they move in. Nice place. Quiet street. Just don't try to steal the Chen's pool. I laugh when I hear that. Elena laughs too. The pool is still here. The family is still here. The peace is still here. And the Hendersons are gone. That's not revenge. That's just consequences. Today, I'm writing this from the patio, looking out at the water, listening to my kids laugh. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Elena is inside, making dinner, something that smells like garlic and love. I think about the trial sometimes. The stress, the expense, the sleepless nights. I think about the Hendersons, their entitlement, their refusal to accept that no applied to them. I could have settled. I could have paid them something to make them go away. A lot of people would have. A lot of people told me I should. But I didn't. Because sometimes you have to draw a line. Sometimes you have to say, this far, no further. The line was my fence. The pool was my sanctuary. And I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. I hope the Hendersons are okay. I hope they've learned something from this, about boundaries, about respect, about the fact that the world doesn't owe them anything. But I don't think about them much anymore. I'm too busy living my life. Too busy enjoying the pool. Too busy being grateful for everything I have. The door they tried to kick down is closed. I walked through my own door. And on the other side, I found peace. That's it for today's stories. If you want to see more of the best threads Reddit has to offer, make Reddit Be Mine a part of your daily routine. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a heartbeat. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next thread.